All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bucks of America podcast. I am your host, Jeff Vance. Tonight's guest is the legend himself, Shay Butler. Now, Shay and I met last year at the Toma Warren shoot at the HHA USA shoot. And since then, it's been kind of a ongoing friendship that's gone into talking about all kinds of unique things. And I've been wanting to have him on the podcast for a period of time, but he is a very, very busy man. And also then throwing hunting season, a wife, kids. So it becomes a balancing act, and we were able to connect tonight. Now, he's had his story told several times on a couple different podcasts, so we're going to kind of leapfrog from them. And if you guys want to go check him out, it's not hard to find his information on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you want to look up his podcast. Today, we're going to be mostly focused on what's all going on, some history behind the Ranger, my story about using the SBK. Let's see, which one is it? It is the
Pursuit.
Yeah, the blade, the Pursuit blade. Thank you for that. And we're going to discuss like my experience with using this in the field in a real world scenario and as my EDC. So, man, Shay, why don't you take it over, man? It's like, why don't you tell us how everything's been going for you? Like before we hit record, you were telling me a bunch of solid blessings that have been coming your way.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, it's been an interesting 2022. We've been at this since, I think this is our 7th year. And last year really was our first year that we went full time. So I was in the healthcare industry, and it was a leap of faith to kind of jump into this and do this full time. And since then, you know, it's kind of opened up some doors. We've kind of doubled down on what we're doing in our knife business, and we also run another business with our hats, and it's just been kind of going bananas. And with that, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, but yeah, it's been great. And I think 2022 is going to be another leapfrog year where we've been in the order taking business and in a situation where knives are not readily available, and I'm always, it seems like, behind the 8 ball. And I think we're going to be announcing some really new and cool stuff, and some ready to buy knives so you can have stuff, not quite Amazon quick, but close to it. So a lot of cool stuff happening, and we're excited to kind of jump into this year.
Now, to elaborate on the Amazon type thing, it's like he is not discussing about like the turnaround. It's like it's the quality that's going to go behind it. Because my thoughts are on this process, and I think he can agree with me, is that these are going to be more like a family heirloom, because the price tag is not cheap, but you don't buy cheap materials you get a greater value for what you're getting for it. And this is one of those things where it's like I could take my Pursuit and pass it down to my loved ones after I'm done using it. So that is a great part about it. So why don't you give us well, before we get into the whole knives, I want to find out, I've been following you all year long. I want to find out more about your buck. Can you give us that story behind him? Because you were only out in the stand for a couple of days and he was already dead.
Oh my goodness. These bucks that we chase, I'll tell you what, you're going to lose sleep. It wasn't just a couple of days. It was a lot of hours. But that was, I can't think of the date. I should know this right off the top of my head. It was around, I think it was during the rut around November 11th, but it was the weirdest thing. We all have these hunting magazines where snow starts to fall, and it's like you see the buck walking in with snow on his back. Well, that morning, it started snowing, and I just, I smiled. I took pictures in the deer stand, and I was like, this is just epic. And really, we had a couple of deer come in that were shooters that, we were looking to shoot, and it didn't work out. I was hunting with a good friend of mine, and he had taken a climber down into the deep, dark timber, and his goal was to sit all day. After that snow, though, it started raining. It started to get really windy. And so with the wind, I decided to move. I said, I'm out. I was planning to sit all day, and I don't like to move stand locations, but it's like, you know what? I'm going to move. So I went, got my truck and drove around the other side of the field. and got in the stand, and it started to snow again. And when I say snow, we had 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was a whiteout. I was sitting in a field, wind in my face.
Okay.
It was miserable. It was one of those things where, you know, you text your friend and he's like, "Are you an idiot? Are you really sitting in this?" And I'll be darned, I wasn't in the stand. In fact, I don't even think I sat down. And I started to see bucks running crazy out in the field, chasing does and in and out of the timber. And I was like, this is going to be good. Lo and behold, I think I was in the stand an hour, and I did something really silly.
Oh boy.
And this is my rule. My rule is we fill does, you know, in October, first 2 weeks of October. I try to kill 2 does and I'm done. That's it. Well, for whatever reason, it was so hot this past year, and it just didn't feel right. And I travel about 3.5 hours one way and 3.5 hours back when I hunt. And so it was just never the right timing. We had tons of does out there, but it was so warm, and I just decided not to do it. Well, on this individual day, I just decided there was 3 does that came out, and this was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And for whatever reason, I stood up and grabbed my bow, and I was like, what am I doing? This is not me. This is not, I'm not going to shoot a doe. That's silly. And they were in front of me for a good 10 minutes. And, you know, I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything following them. And I just said, you know, I didn't think about it. I just picked my bow up and I proceeded and I shot this deer. And I don't know why. This is against my rule. And when I shot this doe, it literally just crumbled. It didn't go 1 yard.
Okay.
And so I texted my friends at VeteranIP, Nick Miller, and Josh at Four Fletch as a joke and said, my decoy fell down. I mean, this is a true story. 20 minutes later, this buck that I've been chasing the whole season, nose to the ground, guess where he's going?
Right to that doe.
Right to that doe. Comes in 9 yards, shoot him, he doesn't go a yard. Now, look, I've been hunting for a long time, and you know when you shoot a deer, they typically, you know, they'll run off and you at least go 7. You can heart shoot a deer and they can go 60, 70 yards. Neither the combined distance, tracking distance, was about 1.5 yards. Wow. So this thing fell down, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, we're sitting at 30-mile-an-hour winds. We've got, you know, it's nuts. And I couldn't believe it. And so I was done. I didn't have any more tags. And so I got down and I was just like, unbelievable. So, and if you were following along at all this past season, this was the same deer in the same spot that I was sitting that was in a fight. So the week before, I had him come in at 30 yards, and it wasn't an ethical shot. And I had to wait a week and try to sleep each night and think, could I have shot that deer? Should I have shot that deer?
Okay.
And he had fought with another mature buck, and they went after it. And I saw the video. I think I had posted on Instagram, and it was nuts. They were just absolutely just exhausted. One was bleeding. Turned out when we recovered this deer and we went to take some pictures, he had his like eye gouged out by this other deer the week before. It was still in, but it was like pussing. It was, yeah, he was beat up. He got his butt kicked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird thing. You know, I had passed him. I didn't think I'd ever have another chance to shoot him. And I went back to the same spot. For whatever reason, I got up that morning. For whatever reason, I shot a doe in November, which is silly. It didn't go anywhere. And it was like, it really was. It was like a decoy. And it was, you know, it was kind of one of those things you had to laugh. I was like, why did I do that? And then I was like, well, I'm going to text my buddy and say, hey, look, my decoy fell down. And I'll be darned, this buck was on his nose to the ground, right directly to that doe, shot him. He just fell over. And that was actually, we did some work with Sever. And that was the first time, I don't know if you saw that picture. I've never seen it. I couldn't believe it, but it actually split that deer's heart in half.
Wow.
And I've never seen that happen. I don't know how. I was in a pretty high location, and I shot down on him. But when we field dressed that deer, I had two people actually witness it. I pulled this thing out, and they're like, "What happened to that?" I'll have to send you a picture. You won't. It's unbelievable. I ended up sharing it with Sever, and they had never seen anything like it before.
Sever is a broadhead company?
Sever is a broadhead.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I just happened to have, because I was shooting. I turned into a Matthews guy, and I was shooting a Target TRX for a lot of the season. But for the timber, I usually shoot my hammer, which is 86-pound VXR, and so I switched to that. And that was partly a mistake because after sitting all day, I barely could get that 86 pounds back at about 2 o'clock that afternoon. So my goodness, but I've never seen, it was just the weirdest thing. I was super happy to get them. And yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing. These deer, I'll tell you what, we dream about them. It's fever, man. I'll tell you what, we put a lot into it.
That is the honest God truth there. I know what you mean. Cause this year, my 2021 season was a lot of fun because I've seen the most deer this entire season, sitting in different spots all across the southeastern Wisconsin. And I've seen the biggest buck of my life this year too, as well. The worst part was it came in on my right-hand side. And when you're a right-hand bow hunter, that's not the side you want them to show up on. But it was a solid 160 class, 15 yards broadside. I couldn't do a damn thing, but I watched him. Boy, it was a learning experience because after he knew, because he saw me, but he didn't run away. He didn't stop. He didn't snort waste. He just walked off because it's like, dude, you don't have a shot. He just walked. He knew it too. But prior to that, though, leading to my story about using your pursuit to butcher my doe, I had a doe come out. So I had probably about 7-8 deer come out through. I had 3 of them were bucks, 4 or 5 of them were does, but I had this one pair that didn't want to go anywhere. She's like, well, it's like I'm eyeing her up in my binos. Like, she's actually pretty big. Got to about 30 yards out, draw back, double lunged her, and she just ran no more than 40 yards. Being piled up. It's like you just watched her walk and just drop. It was awesome because it's like because like you never know what you're going to expect. And she had a friend with her too, and it's like I think it was probably her twin sister. And part of me thought it's like, well, I could put an arrow through her, but it's like also I'm only by myself, so it's like I got a lot of work ahead of me to butcher this. I'll take care of that. So it's like, well, I'll let her walk, and as soon as she realized that her friend's dead, she took off, and that's when I was like, look, I need to go down and take care of it. Now, I carry 2 knives with me because it's like I've heard your story with your uncle and his mule deer and stuff like that. So what I do is like I've had this Gerber blade it's a fixed blade. I've had it for years, and I've butchered several deer with it. And it's like it's like she was so about average size for a young doe, like probably like 2.5, 3.5-year-old doe. And it's like she's just too big. It just like the knife was just too big for the job. So it's like, well, I'm gonna bust this bad boy out. I bust out my HHA USA 0 number 4 of the series. And I opened her right up, and it's like it was a scalpel. I had no issues getting through there, getting around her lungs, cutting that skin, getting all the way around that, pulling out that sack. It performed flawlessly. Now, one of the things I have to compliment you on is that the clip on it is removable. I didn't need to remove it, but it's like I was listening to Ray Newberg just lay into a knife company that the belt clip was so uncomfortable when he was butchering an elk or a mule deer or something like that, that it's like kind of resonated with me. And so it's like, well, I'll see how it all works out. I've bred pretty big hands, so it's like it didn't play a role with me, but it's like I was able to manipulate the blade to cut everything out, and I was able to, I was able to keep the sack intact be able to pull everything all out. And it went well. I couldn't believe how flawlessly it performed. And it's like, you said it, I think I'm the only guy that's ever used their pursuit blade on a wild animal.
To my knowledge, yes, that has to be it. Yep. I've seen some rhinos. I think the Hush guys did an entire elk with a rhino, but I think you got to be the first that I'm aware of that's used the pursuit to do an entire deer. So that's awesome.
And what the way you orchestrate the blades, but that finer tip right there allows you to get in there and really cut around what you need to get around, especially when you're cutting around the rib cage or when you want to just make small incisions because you don't know how deep you're going to go, but it's like it just fit where I'm able to get just below the hair, get into the skin, and just kind of open up her gut and go from there. And I used it for the rest of the day and pulled everything off and pulled the hair up, pulled the hide off, and cut everything off and went from there. And it was a very pleasant experience with it. It is my EDC, so it's like it definitely has some wear and tear in it, but it's like anybody that's listening to this podcast, this is a great EDC for your day-to-day.
Well, we're gonna get you a Featherlight this year, so you don't have to use your EDC.
Yeah, that was what I want to lean into next because you came up with the Featherlight. Was it last fall?
Yeah, we came out with the Featherlight, and I won't mention names, but I bought some competitors' blades. We've had some. We've really, we're kind of all over the board. Whether it's whitetail hunters to out west to elk, and those guys out there are crazy about weight, and so. What I was trying to do is design something that was, super sharp, thick, yet durable. And ounces matter. We kind of came up with the Featherlight, and it's a smaller blade, but it's for those guys that want to almost use a scalpel and so we came up with that, and I was like, well, guys are gonna want to see it naked. Without handles. And so we kind of designed it around, well, you can make it with handles. We ended up doing different colors, and, you got the guy that buys the 6 colors. You got the person that just wants the blade itself. I don't know about you, but I'm the guy that always does all the butchering at deer camp. And primarily, I think, one, I've just always loved doing that, and maybe I'm just weird, but 2, it's really, honestly, it's been a lot of research and development. And it's almost like, okay, what did I like about this? What I didn't like about it? And, I've got, usually I don't actually own very many of my knives. Usually it's all my buddies and they have them. And so I'm using those, but that's kind of how we've really came out with all of our different designs, is just by trial and error and what works good. And last year we put together an ambassador program and got some knives out to guys. And really the intent with that is, hey, tell me what you don't like about it. And that's the only way that I guess, I'm going to get better, is tell me what you don't like about it. And, we can expand upon it that way. So, but yeah, the Featherlight was turned out to be a hit. It was kind of one of those things where we did an introductory, hey, let's see how many, if guys are interested in this. And it turned out to be more than I bargained for, because I think we got into the hundreds in about a day or so in order. So it took me a while to get them out. But I think the feedback I got on those was really positive. I'm more of a bigger knife kind of guy, especially even when it comes to just the whitetails. And I was surprised just at the feedback, and, it worked really well. And I also had some guys do some really weird stuff with it. I don't know if I've got one here. I'll show you. I've got some through heat treat, but you can probably see this. Guys were using the back of this jimping to actually, when they're skinning down, they were using this to pull the hide down.
Okay.
And so there was, of course I told them I designed it for that. I was like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I never even thought about that. But of course, we had to integrate the bottle opener here at the end. It's okay. It can work. It can work in a pinch, but we really we focused on the blade itself and the geometry of that. And if other things worked out, then great. But yeah, those turned out pretty good. And I'm actually making some modifications. In fact, one of these is modification. So we're going to be coming out with probably some more. We're going to be dropping some turkey blades here and a lot of stuff going on.
That is pretty sweet. Because I was looking through your write-up on the blade, and only approximately comes at 2.2 ounces. I mean, that's extremely light.
It's light, but I'll tell you what, I was worried about that. But they're pretty tough. They're tough little boogers. Even with the scales or the handles, maybe they're 3.4 ounces, but guys were, like I said, having really good luck with them. One guy did, I think, 3 whitetails, still was razor sharp. So, I mean, that's what we're aiming for. Everybody always, especially we were talking about Al before this came on, and guys always ask, out in the field, like, how do you sharpen them? I'm like, you don't need to sharpen them. He's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, you're going to get through that animal. There's no reason you should have to sharpen this. And so we try to make them fairly sharp and sharpen them at in a manner that will hold up, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's worked out so far, but there's always room for improvement.
No, that's so true. I've noticed that for some odd reason, a couple of companies have now decided to come with replaceable blades, and it's like I don't like that concept, because I get it. You're trying to market to a cheaper audience, and it's like you can. They're very easy to manufacture and throw out there, but it's like you're just creating more and more waste. Instead of having a cheaper product with the throwaway blade, it's like, why don't you just put your time into having a better edge or using a better steel? Because the people like us, diehards that like a high quality item, because once you have the income level for it, or you've had enough mistakes, you've learned your lesson, you always are willing to spend the money for a better product. And I don't get that philosophy. I don't get it. I don't like it.
I think that there's a place in the market for that. There's always a place for that. I think before we got onto this podcast, I think where we're really trying to fill the gap is, being intentional about building this and personalizing it and making this something that, for example, your pursuit that you got at HHA, that it's handed down. I just don't see the intention behind the replaceable blade and maybe the value as it relates to sentimental value or something like that. But I think there is a place, maybe a scalpel blade when you're trying to, there is some place for it, but I'm not a huge fan. So
needless to say, yes. Yeah. So what was the inspiration behind the Featherlight then? What clicked in your mind and let's do this?
Well, I'll be honest. Like I said, we had some guys out west, and actually I was doing a podcast with Johnny Mack.
Okay.
That was kind of part of it. And he had mentioned the Benchmade Altitude that he liked a lot. So I was like, I'll check it out. And I said, well, I'm going to make something that, I don't want to say like the Benchmade, but, in a situation where it's a lighter knife and, it's something where ounces matter. And that's kind of the inspiration. We looked at a couple, he was talking about knives, and he talked about a couple, and I was like, really? Well, I think you should try this. I'm going to make something and tell me what you think. That's kind of how it came about. It was more so for those guys that just really want a lighter knife and want something that if they're doing a backcountry hunt that they can throw in their pack and they know that's going to hold up. And that's kind of the story behind it. I'm not one of those guys that, like, if I skimp on anything, it's not going to ever be my knife as it relates to weight. I would cut weight in other ways, but the knife thing is always when you've been in a situation where, you thought you were potentially not going to make it out. I'm never not going to skimp on the knife portion of it. So
that's why when I heard about when Cold Steel out of Ventura, California, when they came out back in the early 2000s, like learning their story behind it, because those guys were all ex-military, all ex-police officers. They all had a blade fail them in a time of need, in a life or death situation. And so when they got out, that's what they did with it. Now, you were telling me before I hit record regarding the Ranger, there's a special story behind that.
Oh my goodness. It's a funny one. And I'll try not to get too long-winded on this, but one of my really dear friends out in Montana, I grew up, I always wanted to be a sniper. And that's what I wanted to do. And I shot long range for a long time and went out and took a shooting school. And that's actually the gentleman that we can say that he got me into this mess, because I was with him when I had that accident. But I started shooting PRS. So you've probably seen, some of the PRS competitions where, you got like, usually you're shooting a smaller caliber, like a 260 or a 6.5, and started doing some of these PRS matches. And I did a pro-am, and the amateur who, by the way, was an awesome shooter, by the way. Not an amateur in my opinion, but he mentioned that his son was an Army Ranger, and he would like to make a knife for his son. And he said, and I think he is somehow connected to the Rangers as it relates to somehow he's I don't know how he works somehow in conjunction with them. And so really, a long story short, I made a couple of them, sent them out his way. He loved them. And, the next couple of weeks, the guy says, hey, I need like 12 more. And this was really in the infancy stages of our company, when we had just transitioned over to doing stainless steel, where it was taking me, on average 20 hours to make a knife. So, you make a couple knives, you send them out, they loved them. And, the guy orders 12 more, and I'm like, oh no, that's a lot of work. That was back in the day where, 30 knives was the entire year of all I would make. And so that actually transitioned into, okay, people like these. I started water jetting them and trying to, make it a little bit easier on myself and less time to hand cut out each one of these things. And, those got a little bit of popularity. And then it was Chris Stewart at the Bow Rack. I'm sure you've heard of the Bow Rack.
Oh, yes, with Cam Haynes.
Yeah, well, Lisa and Wayne Endicott, just solid earth people, run that shop, great shop. And Chris Stewart was one of the archery techs. He'd been there for forever. He's a great guy. And we became friends because I literally went out to Oregon with my wife, and I said, if we go out to Oregon, I want to go to the Bow Rack. And so I want to meet these folks, and ended up going out there, and just like I said, solid earth folks. So I think we ended up going out to dinner, and I became friends with Chris, and Chris said, hey, Cam's got this fundraiser going on where he's donating a Ford Ranger. He's like, you make Ranger knives. Why don't you make him a Ranger? I was like, okay, well, I was like, if he wants to, I mean, I'm not one of those guys that I don't want to pester people. I realize people are busy. And by the way, Cam is just a fantastic person. I was able to shake his hand at the ATA, and, there's some of these people that, on Instagram talk a different way, and, they act a different way when you meet them. And he was just, solid earth guy. And so we ended up doing a Ranger for him, and he ended up using it on a bunch of elk. And I was like, I've never even thought of this. Like, this was for the military community. I had done it, and I think I did a Stars and Stripes one for him, and he ended up using it the whole season. And I was like, I've never really thought about using that knife for an animal. And so we ended up, sending, I was like, well, I sent one to Cam. I better send one to Rogan.
True. And what about Dudley? Have you sent one off to him yet?
I did get one to Dudley, And but Joe posted it, and you get the Joe Rogan effect. And I think I got tired of making Rangers because everybody wanted to get one. But so I never. What was interesting about the story is that I've never used this on an animal. And about 3 years ago, I didn't own one, but my buddy had got one for Christmas. His wife bought one for Christmas. We were hunting. There was a deer down. I was like, "Hey, you got that Ranger that I made you for Christmas?" He's like, "Yeah."
I'm Jake with HHA Sports, and today we're going to talk a little bit about our Dovetail Sights and how they're going to fit on the new Mathews V3X. So as you'll see, I have a Tetra Max Tournament Edition sight on this 33-inch V3X. All of our Dovetail sights, the Tetra and the Tetra Max, will fit on the V3X. Also, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see us come out with a shorter Dovetail version. It'll just be our short bar version, which will also fit on the V3X on both the 29 and 33-inch model. One question that we've gotten pretty frequently lately is the windage adjustments on your Tetra and Tetra Max bow sights on the new Mathews bow. And this year we came out with the infinite adjust plate, which you'll see on the front end of your sight. So when you put this infinite adjust plate on, you'll want to either flip it to the inside or the outside. And for the inline mounting sight options, such as the V3X, you're going to want to make sure that the infinite adjust plate is to the outside of your infinite adjust channel. This will allow for optimal windage adjustments. So you'll also be able to find the infinite adjust bracket on our website if you're already shooting a Tetra or Tetra Max Tournament Edition sight. Another way that you can get your HHA to fit V3X is by buying our conversion kit, which you can find on our website at hhasports.com. We'll be selling those at retail around $60. So basically the only thing you'll have to do is you'll have to take apart your sight at the third access point, and you can convert any Tetra or Tetra Max sight. So if you have a fixed frame, you can get that into a Dovetail. So like mentioned before, any Dovetail sight will fit a Tetra or a Tetra Max, as well as our short bar version. For more information, you can visit our website at www.hhasports.com.
And so I used it, and I was like, "Holy cow, this thing's awesome!" And so from that day forward, I made myself one finally, and that is always in my hunting pack. And that is the blade that it's the the quote unquote oh shit blade. I've been in a situation without bone saws. I've used it as a hatchet. If I needed to cut off a tree branch or a limb, this thing, I mean, you could run it over. These things are meaty, and so never thought, like I said, that I'd ever use it on an animal, but it works out really well. And that's kind of where impetus of looking at these other knives and using and trying them, how we've kind of developed all of our different models. The Ranger was really built for the military, and kind of likewise, the Intrepid was built for the 307 project. So
what's that project?
The 307 project is led by Chad Wright, who's a former Navy SEAL, and his brother Blake Wright. Great folks, Christian folks. And Chad, like I said, was a Navy SEAL, and he takes folks out and he conducts what's called the basic course about 8 times a year. And basic course is really land navigation, getting out. I think there's a little bit of everything, just as it relates to setting up a camp, like I said, land navigation, fires, living off the land, for 3 days. And at the end of the course, there's a team leader, and they, basically the team lead takes these 8 people throughout, and he gives them missions, and it's pretty cool. But they pick a person, that kind of was the standout, and they get an Intrepid. So I designed the Intrepid for the 307 project, and we ended up, I think, sending those guys about 85 of them last year.
Wow.
And we're doing them this year a little bit different, but yeah, that was more of a, I guess you could say like a bushcraft type of, but I gotta tell you, I made myself one and I used it for whitetails for my daughter's whitetail this past fall. And I was like, dang, this thing's awesome. Cause it's super, you know, my wife will use the technical term stabby. It's real stabby. And so it works really well. And so it's, you know, I like to say that these blades are somewhat dual purpose, so to speak. You know, it looks kind of mean and tactical, you know, appeals to the tactical community. But at the end of the day, man, it's a great outdoor knife and really can do a lot of different things. So I think that's what we're going to send to Al here in the next few weeks to have him check out and review and write an article on.
That is pretty cool because those who don't been a fan of the podcast, I had Al on. We talked about reloading, and we barely touched the whole paradigm of reloading because I wanted to bring a guy. I was looking through it. He was talking about reloading. It's like perfect. This would be the great guy to have. And it's like we probably hit like I think it was like step 4 or 5 of the 12 steps that he goes through, and we talked about equipment and dies and all that fun stuff. And he articulates in such a sincere way that he really goes through everything. And was right before SHOT Show, and we had a chance chat about how we got into his blog and going from there and just kind of been slowly and steadily growing his entire platform. So is that what because you were leading towards this in our conversation prior to recording, but that's what you guys discussed was that what you kind of pinpointed would be the blade form, because I thought maybe you're going to do something special, one of a kind type scenario.
Well, you know, so there's really 2 blade. We talked about 2, and one was the Intrepid and one was the Ranger. The Ranger's not really, you know, what I would consider a hunting knife. However, it was the knife that, you know, I won't go anywhere without. It's always in my pack. I always have it in my pack. It's like I said, it's the oh shit knife. If something goes down and I'm in a bind, I know that, you know, I could run it over with my truck and throw it against the concrete and we're still good to go. But we talked about, you know, he wanted something that he could, you know, go through an entire elk, but if he needed to baton a piece of wood, we could work through that. And I think from a weight perspective, the difference between the 2 is I skeletonized out the interior of the Intrepid. So it's got really good balance. It's heavy. And I mean, it's a pig. I mean, it's 100, it's a 180. It's not even, it's almost a 1/4 inch thick. I mean, it's a hefty piece of steel, but the way that we, you know, put the geometry in the handle, it really doesn't feel like it's as big as it, you know, potentially is. So we'll see. We actually just cut out some for him and put them through heat treat, and we're going to probably coat those and do something special there. But he was looking for a weight, and so we got to get him some dimensions and stuff like that with some of the new thicknesses.
That is exciting. I'm looking forward to see that. Now, I wanted to go into, you said you have a fiber laser, because I've been playing around with getting a fiber laser now for the last couple of years. And it's like, I figured like, well, maybe the inspiration will dry out and never see anything of it. This was almost 2 years ago when I first saw like, hey, this is kind of fun to do. And as have been kind of like, as the years progressed and now it's on to year 2, it's like this inspiration still with me. What laser do you rock? What do you use?
Don't ask that question. So,
okay.
No, you can totally. I was kidding you. I play with a lot of lasers. In fact, my entire day was setting up a new one. So we just got a brand new one. But we typically will run with our hat business. We run CO2 lasers and we run epilogues. And a fiber laser is a completely different animal. It's, you know, different hatchings, and you know, they can go upwards of $30,000 to $100,000.
Oh yes.
So and that's what we pay that for our CO2s, because we run them legit nonstop all day, and that's how we create our leather patches. But I wanted something, I've went through this process of, I had a stamp made where I stamped knives, and, you had a 10-ton jack and you were using that. Problem with that is it looks great, but you end up pressing the backside of the knife out, and then you end up having to surface grind that. And it's just a lot of work. So then I was like, well, I'm going to start etching. And that was a complete mess. I was just etching the top of it, and, you use a saltwater solution, and to put your maker's mark, or if you wanted to personalize something, like we did knives for the bow rack, and we had some stencils made, and, you can etch those. And then I was like, this isn't working. So I got a different machine and started deep etching. Same process. But the problem with that is anytime you want to have a stencil made, you're talking, probably anywhere from $20, $30 to $100. So you got to have the stencils made, and you got to hand go through and do this. And the process takes a long time to get deep into the metal. And so finally I just threw my hands up and I said, okay, there's got to be an easier way. And there's got to be a way that I can personalize stuff for folks and make stuff, quote unquote sentimental, and have some meaning behind it without going through all these steps. So I bought a fiber laser. It was a complete disaster because, I wanted something made in the USA. Well, good luck. There's not a lot out there. And I found one that was, quote unquote made in the USA. When I cracked it open, we found out that it wasn't. And we found out the hard way, because when we plugged it in, it did not turn on.
Oh no.
We hit the go button, and, we kind of joked, we're like, the ONOFF button, you got to turn that on and press go, wouldn't turn on. And so when I called the company back, these things are heavy, you got to uncrate them, and, it's kind of a pain in the rear end. And they wanted me to do a Zoom call with someone in China. I was like, so this is not me. Kind of figured that out pretty quick, but it ended up being a power source. We got it figured out. And, but yeah, they're really interesting. The fibers, like I said, mine was on the cheaper end of that spectrum. And, but what's nice is, you can put people's names into stuff, and you can get it as deep as you want to go. It really just kind of depends on time and, your hatch structure. But that's something we definitely play along with all the time. I mean, people are pretty, they come into the shop and, like we have guys I had a guy that just said, hey, can you put my name into this knife? I didn't buy it from you. I know you didn't make it, but, it was a gift, and I want to put my son's name on it. I was like, sure, bring it over. That's fine. And I think that their eyes just light up, because it's kind of a cool process. You do it for about 10 hours and you're like, okay, this wears off. But, it's a cool process. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I've been researching him, and I've been like all the guys. Like I belong to a group online on Facebook. It's at 20,000 deep, so it's got tons of people to pick their brains and work with vectors and stuff like that. So because my whole idea is that I want to be able to mark knives, or actually engrave knives. Not marking is what if you have a CO2 laser, if you have a fiber laser. So looking at a 50 MOA, it's like you said, most of all the lasers are coming out of China, so there's no really way around it unless you go above that $15,000 mark. And it's like, well, I'm in a townhouse. I don't really need something that big. But I found like right around that $5 to $6 grand is like the sweet spot of a 50 watt. It's going to be a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient. It's not going to take up as much room, but it's like I'll be able to place it someplace where I will be able to filter or funnel all that smoke and stuff that comes off of etching and such. And I want to be able to start with doing engraving tumblers for starting off, doing knives, doing cutting boards, stuff like that. But my end goal is to get all the way up to uppers and lowers. Now, nice thing about this group, it tells you is like you have to get you got to get your FFL license. It's a number 7, because it's like you're increasing the value of the firearm, so therefore you have to get one. And so that's something that we want to escalate up to. So we're thinking in May we're going to pull the trigger on getting one of those.
The hardest thing about that is some of these lasers that are imported are the software. and some of the software that it comes with, because it's written in Chinese. So it's like, good luck. So it was a lot of, let's say I ruined a lot of things before I actually made any progress. But once you kind of figure it out, and there's a couple guys online that have some YouTube channels that I can share with you that kind of set them up. I think they're all fairly the same. And that could be some help. And
I've learned that Lightburn too is Lightburn is the software that a lot of guys use, or if you use AutoCAD, then some people are able to import vectors using Adobe Photoshop, but there's other versions that are not so overpriced.
Yep. Oh yeah. So we just had a new baby here and got a new epilogue. We actually got it set up today, and man, the technology has really changed. I mean, the one that we opened up and uncreated and got set up today, there literally there's a video. So it's got a camera on top of it. So as you actually do stuff, you can watch it from your computer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's insane.
What'd you go through? Did you get like a Maybach or
no, we run all epilogues.
Epilogues. Okay.
Yeah. So they're really nice. They've got great customer service. I think I've rebuilt the two that I have several times under warranty. They overnight stuff if you ever have any issues. And so add to the list of things, I'm also a laser technician.
Well, that is good news for me, because then it's like I wanted to find that firsthand experience, like who has the best customer service, because that's where it comes down to making and breaking companies. I mean, that's why Vortex is where it's at. That's where HHA is where it's at, because of how the leaders focus on the customer service aspect of it, keep people coming back and buying more.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, that's where I'm headed with that. So I'm looking forward to it, because my whole approach to it, because it's like I don't know how fast it's going to scale, but it'd be nice to, like, for the folks that I do know that like they want to, like, I want some tumblers made up, like, sure, just you buy the tumbles, ship them here, and then I'll ship them back to you and go from there. And it's like the nice thing is tumblers not that expensive, and they're easy to really play around with to kind of get the whole flow of them. But I've seen some really cool people doing some stuff where they'll take the breakdown of the firearm and put it right on the ammo can. It's like, that's cool. I want to do that.
Yeah. No, there's some really, I mean, sky's the limit too. And depending on, there's, I think, applications for both CO2, because we run tumblers in our CO2s, and we've got rotaries. I'm
Jake with HHA Sports, and today we're going to talk a little bit about our Dovetail Sights and how they're going to fit on the new Mathews V3X. So as you'll see, I have a Tetra Max Tournament Edition sight on this 33-inch V3X. All of our Dovetail sights, the Tetra and the Tetra Max, will fit on the V3X. Also, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see us come out with a shorter Dovetail version. It'll just be our short bar version, which will also fit on the V3X on both the 29 and 33-inch model. One question that we've gotten pretty frequently lately is the windage adjustments on your Tetra and Tetra Max bow sights on the new Mathews bow. And this year we came out with the infinite adjust plate, which you'll see on the front end of your sight. So when you,
and that's fun until you got to do about 1,000 of them. Then those also become a little challenging, but there's just, like I said, a ton of stuff you can do. We've done some cutting boards, and it's really fun, like I said, because you can personalize stuff for people and make some really unique stuff that maybe are thought out, and it's just pretty neat stuff.
That is so true. So what do you got going on? No, we did touch base on the HHA USA. You're gonna be able to make it back up to one of the events this year, because he's only doing 6.
Yeah, so there's six missions this year, and I told Chris, I had talked to him a couple of days ago, I'd love to make it all 6. The reality is, with stuff going on here in the shop and doing some coaching, that at a minimum we'd like to make at least 1, but we're going to be doing 6 knives for those different missions that will be auctioned off at the events. And I'm sure they'll end up having a Featherlight and Intrepid. We'll see. But yeah, really good guy. Chris is solid earth kind of guy. And anything, that he has his hand in, is usually really good work, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. So
100%. So how did you two cross paths then?
So one of the guys that was an ambassador, David Wooten.
Oh, Dave, yeah.
Yeah. So Dave, I had sent him a knife last year, I think a whitetail, and he wanted to be a part of our ambassador team. And he said, hey, you really need to meet this Chris guy. And so Chris gave me a call. Chris is a Christian guy, and along with myself. And so we hit it off, obviously. And, he does archery, makes archery products, and I love archery. So, I just kind of asked, what could I do to help support what you guys are doing? And so we did some hats for HHA USA.
Yep, I got one right here.
Yeah.
I wear this hat quite frequently. Since I do launch this on YouTube, I always have a hat of the episode, hat for the episode. And I'm always switching them all out between all the different brands that I've been given over the last few years.
Yep. So we did some hats for him, and then it just made sense with the knives that we did a Stars and Stripes, and we did a couple of different things for him. But it's really cool, and I think that event is really going to get bigger over the next couple of years. It seems like it's really grown, and there's just a lot of cool people that are getting involved and getting behind it. And so it's, like I said, it's an honor for me to do anything to help support what he's doing. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's like I think I'm going to be able to make it all 6, but I may only be to all 5 of the 6, because I know that I missed out. I like to give Brian Austin some love with the Beast Mode Archery Challenge up there, and I want to go to his King of the Hill, because that's supposed to see something like last year it 250 people.
Oh, wow.
And this year last year was only 2 courses all throughout Tyrol Basin. So it's like you're going all through the elevation change, shooting all over the place. It is an event of itself. It's not, you can't even compare it to TAC, because some people tried comparing it to TAC, and it's not like that, because it's the way he has it orchestrated. It's very smooth and very flowing. And this year he's adding a 3rd course to it. So this way it's able to break up even quicker. He's talking to vendors to show up to demonstrate products, stuff like First Light, Vortex, whoever's willing to be able to commit to it and go to it. And I want to be able to go to that one at least, and that's in the end of July.
Where's that at?
Tyrol Basin is over by Mount Harab. It's just south of Madison. So you just pretty much hop on 90 and come back on up.
Well, it's close to me then.
It's only from St. Charles, from where you live there. It's probably only like 4-hour drive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm good. Well, I make my trip down to Peoria, so that's only just under 5 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll have to figure out when I'm going up to HHA, because maybe you can bring me a spaghetti pizza.
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, I'm going to be going down there for Easter. I'm I'm hoping to talk my wife into taking that Friday off, because that 6-hour drive is a long one, but it makes things easier to be able to go down and go pick up a spaghetti pizza, because those that have lived in the area, just like that, is absolutely legit pizza, and they're known for the sauce. They have 4 restaurants, been around for years.
That's funny. Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I bring it up to my dad all the time, because he used to live down in that area as well for a period of time, working for Lafarge quarry system down there, moving rock and all those big old trucks and such.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. This weekend I ended up picking up a new bow. I got a Expedition Denali XL or LX, excuse me. It's from Expedition. They're out of Decorah. It's a brand new bow. So it's like, have you ever shot an Expedition before?
I haven't. I was the Hoyt fanboy. I shot Hoyt for 9 years, and I switched over to Matthews. And I kind of just stuck there. And so I've been shooting Matthews for a couple of years, and I don't know. All the bows today they're all really good. I mean, the technology has really come along so far. And, I think that really, everybody, I have a lot of people message me, because I, on social media, will post a lot of shooting videos, and like, which bow should I get? I'm like, whichever one feels comfortable. That's what it boils down to, is, what feels comfortable for you, and how much weight should I get? I'm like, what feels comfortable for you?
Uh-huh.
It's a feel thing, but there's a lot of good bows out there. I tend to be pretty loyal though to brands, but I love all bows. I don't discriminate.
Yeah, I got a lead up on the wall, and then behind me I have my new Expedition. But what I like that stands out from Expedition comes some of those, they have a limited lifetime warranty on their limbs and risers. So this way, if you start seeing feathering or anything goes wrong with your limbs, you send it in and they'll take care of it for you.
Wow.
Not like the typical 1-year warranty type thing, but I'm an Iowa boy, so it's like they're right in Decorah, so they're only an hour and a half from me. Kurt Headington is a legit dude, humble as fuck. He is just a hardworking guy. He was there at the Iowa Classic this past week. He's one of the flagship sponsors for it. But it's just an all around good guy there, and plus it's like I know a lot of folks that have moved from Rochester to Decorah to be the head bow tech. So it's just something special. But then I got Matthews literally 15 minutes away.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. And that's, I got to tell you, like you asked me at the beginning of this podcast, I'll tell you what, it's just, it's a blessing and it's crazy because, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I mean, who would ever thought? I've always been a knife nut, but what's even icing on the cake is, I can sit and start and name people at different archery companies that we've worked with, and, being able to be within the industry that you actually like is your hobby and your, what's fun, what you like to do on the weekends.
Yeah.
Making stuff for these guys. I mean, it's really almost a dream come true because, even if we're not making, if a guy doesn't have a knife, what usually happens is they'll start with hats, and when they get an invoice, they're like, wait a second, who's Shay Butler Knives? Because everything runs through Shay Butler Knives LLC. And they're like, you make knives? I'm like, I try. And they go to our website, and but it's been a really interesting couple of years, just simply because we've been able to work with some really cool, some really big names within the industry. And in the small ones too. I mean, I don't discriminate. We've been able to meet, I would say we probably have within the last 2 years, 300 customers within the hunting industry alone. And so big and small, with podcasts, to, some big companies like HHA. We've done some stuff for Sever and Easton. It's really cool. And Ultraview. And then of course Chris B, we've done a bunch of hats for him. That kid knows how to sell hats, I'll tell you that.
he's trucking through. Yeah, here's something for it. I have some old Easton Game Getter all aluminum arrows. That's what I've got currently set up on my Expedition. I'm going to be using those for target this upcoming season. I don't know if you ever shot those throughout the day or not.
Yeah. Oh, of course. The old Game Getters. I mean, if you haven't, then who are you, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think of where mine would be. It's kind of one of those things like, oh my gosh, you said that. I'm like, where are those? I don't even know where those are at. So yeah, but like we talked before, it's a sickness, it's, getting your bow set up. You're usually doing that now and tweaking your sights and getting different arrows. And I'll tell you what, I really do like what Chris did with his sights, with removable sight tapes. That's huge. And that's always been something that bugs me is, I'll try to set up a target arrow.
Yeah.
And, just being able, I'm looking at it right now. I got my sight tapes. I've got these wheels, and it's like, man, it's so nice just with a quick Allen wrench, you can switch your arrow, and it's like everything's right there. So he's done a really nice job with that. I love that, how he did that.
Oh, I completely agree. I just got some magnifiers on my Tetra. I got the 4X and such because my eyes are not what they used to be, just not even a few years ago. But putting that on my sight, it's immediate eye relief, and I didn't have to have a clarifier for it because I only went with the 4X instead of a 6X, and it is a game changer for if you're struggling seeing those long shots.
Yeah, I've never used one. And I feel like I was like, my gosh, who did I message? So I set up this TRX, and it was the first time I used a back bar.
Okay.
And I was like, you're all cheating with this back bar. This thing, you can hold it forever. It doesn't even move. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of technology out there that I've never even tried. I'm really old school, and I put a back bar on, and I was like, man, this is incredible. You can hold, I mean, you can shoot 20-yard groups at 60. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
but,
I know the feeling. I found at the end of last season with the 3D target, I decided to put a back bar on there. But once hunting started, I took it off because I haven't been shooting long enough with it. So I didn't want to struggle with it. I didn't want to create a situation where I was going to regret it. So I just left it off. And now since hunting season's over with, I put it back on there, and it is a definitely game changer for it. I don't know why I didn't put it on there and left it on there and keep it on there, but I guess it was always an ounce thing for me too. Cause like my Impulse 31 from Elite, it's 6 pounds just with everything on it without the quiver. And then I switched to my Denali that it's 34 axle, everything loaded out on with my aluminum arrows it's just about 8 pounds. I said, that's a heavy bow, but it's like, I'm looking forward to shooting it.
Yeah. It's
an addiction, like we say.
It is. I'll tell you what, my wife thinks I'm crazy, and especially when season starts to get closer. She's like, why are you always on your phone all the time? I was like, oh, I was just checking a deer walk by, deer camera. Like, are you looking at deer porn again? I was like, yes, ma'am. Sorry.
That is hilarious. But the cellular technology for cameras has been a game changer. It's like it saves so much more time. You're not going out there pulling cards and swapping them out. It's like now you're just like, oh, this is awesome. And I just saved me like an hour's worth of work.
Well, especially for me, because like I said, I'm about 3.5 hours away. So I run, a dozen cameras, and I, for whatever reason, still have some old ones, and that's always still the present though. It's always the present to pull the card. I will say the cell cams are awesome, and that it's an instant gratification. All right. But I probably still have a half a dozen or a dozen regular cameras that have SIM cards that you got to pop out. And those are the moments when I'm walking to the deer stand that I grab that card, and when I get up, it's like Christmas morning. You're like, what, you're like, what is it? What is it? What, And so it's kind of one of those things. It's like, you never know, because my regular cell cams are kind of on the high traffic areas around the field edges and stuff like that. And some of those regular cameras are in the deep, dark timber that, really there's some spots that cell cams don't work, just due to service. And so it's fun to pull those still and see what's happened over, a month's period. I like to leave them out for a while and not bother them. But that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I like that aspect too. I have a couple of them that are in areas that are difficult to get, that don't get cell service. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's always an adventure to what you're gonna find. But now I've gotten to the point where I have cards for two cards for every camera. So this way I'm not trying to, I did that whole thing for a while. I was like, hey, I'll get the jack, put on my phone and transfer them all off and then put them back in the, that was a waste of time. Then it's like, they're not that expensive. You can buy a 16 gig for $8 at Walmart. It's like, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's next on your list? What do you got left? What are you rolling out for this upcoming season for turkey season? You said you were mentioning about knives.
We're going to be doing some turkey inspired blades, I think. In fact, I've got 8 of them here that I'm going to try to get out. I know we're kind of running on. It seems like we're always running on a deadline, up to the deadline. But there's some new stuff. There's without giving away too much, I'm looking at potentially doing a hatchet or something that can be used out in the field. So that's on my list. That's kind of been on my list. We're looking at a new folder. A new design on that. And if you didn't know, if you look at our folders, the Rhino, which I have here, is inspired by, it's really the Ranger. So if you think of the Ranger geometry shrunk down, that's what the Rhino is. the Pursuit is the Pursuit. So I did make a knife called the Pursuit. So it's off the same geometry. We're going to be using and leveraging the Intrepid geometry and putting out a new folder. And along with that, we're just going to hopefully ramp up production and have a lot more stuff that's in stock and ready to buy, so to speak. The challenge with that is we do so much personalization. And I think we talked about that a little bit. You know, how can we make this knife super special to this person, whether it's a Bible verse, whether it's a saying, whatever it may be, that makes that person either smile, giggle, or you know, whatever it may be. And so it's hard to kind of have a ton of those in stock for production because there's a process. You really want to do that lasering before you do any finishing. And so we're trying to kind of figure out the best way to skin that. And but yeah, we've got hopefully 2 to 3 more knife designs coming out. I'm redesigning the whitetail knife and probably doing a few tweaks to the featherlight, hopefully coming out with this hatchet, and should be a really interesting, you know, next 6 months, so to speak. So
that's pretty cool.
A lot of stuff going on in the shop, but I mean, we try to come out with about 1 to 2 knives, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but the problem is we're still selling. I kind of wrote down a list. So we've got the Ranger. I redesigned the Ranger, so it's Ranger 2.0. So there's really 2 designs and 2 models there. We've got the Wilderness, we've got the Pursuit, we've got what I call the bow rack knife, which is, there's no name for it. We just call it the bow rack knife.
Yeah.
We've got the Whitetail, we've got the Rhino, we've got the Pursuit folder, which you have, the Intrepid and the Featherlight. And so we try to come out with 1 or 2. And like I said, any knife maker will tell you that it's tough to do prototyping because when the orders are coming in for all these other knives, you know, it's like, what do? Do you fulfill the order or do you do the prototyping? So we've been talking about the prototype for the folder for about 6 months, but we got to tackle that. And I've got a prototype here for this hatchet, and still trying to figure out how I want to do that. But I'm hoping that we'll have probably 3 new models here by the time season rolls around. So with updates to some of the existing ones.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And there's, without spilling the beans, there's going to be a couple things that will be really cool. And I don't say that. Anybody that knows me will tell you that I don't get excited about anything that I do. Everything I don't want to say put down, but I always say, I could do that better. That one's not that great. But I am excited about something that hopefully will be happening here within the next 15 to 20 days. And so there's going to be a couple Ranger models that come out that I think are going to shock some people. They're going to be really, really cool. So I'll just leave it at that. I think for the first one, I may gift it to someone just simply because it's going to make them either smile or laugh. It's going to be good. So we've got a couple of tricks up our sleeve that, you know, that we want to try to stay fresh and new. And, but really we've really just been keeping our heads down. We haven't had a lot of presence on social media. It's not because we're not making knives. It's because we're trying to get stuff done for people that have, you know, placed their trust in us. And, you know, when we've got really a 2-person operation, it's full time. Most people work from, you know, 8 to 5. We're going, you know, 7 to 1 in the morning all the time. So, but we wouldn't trade it for anything. And it's a pure blessing. And like I said, you know, what's really cool about our business is really the people and the people that you meet along the way, you know, the Chris Hams of the world, you know, I mean, being able to call him a friend and, you know, just people all throughout, and they're not always good. I'll tell you that. And I've learned from social media that, you know, not everyone is always who they appear to be, but for the most part, I've met some really, truly good folks that I would consider to call a dear friend. So it's been a really, really cool ride. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see what's in store. You know, we just really try to keep our heads down and work, and hopefully it all works out.
I know that feeling, man. I do put in so much time, but this latter part of the year, November and December of 2021, my podcast listens have been increasing. Like I remember when I first started out seeing 30, 50, 60, 70. Now I'm consistently from January 1st till now, I'm consistently seeing triple digit downloads. And now I'm starting to see some older episodes getting more attention now. So it's like people are going back into the catalog and such. And the amount of emails I get like, hey, let's monetize you. Let's do this, let's do that. And it's like, you have to be more worried. It's like, well, are you a scam or what's your deal here? It's like, you do understand. I talk about spoilers and the left doesn't like that. I'm be launching another podcast here in a few weeks, which will be called After Dark, and it's only going to be talking about spoiler alerts. We're going to talk about what's going on with the IMF, the SWIFT system, the World Economic Forum. We're going to be diving deep. So it's like going to be the tinfoil hat outdoorsman is my tagline right there.
Yeah,
I spent a lot of time going deep into that stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I really enjoy the podcast though. And just podcasting in general. This is probably within the last year, and kind of got back into, the physical aspect of training and whatnot. And it's a really good time to catch up if you're going for a long run and just listening to folks. And, it's fun. I really think things have changed as it relates to just podcasting in general. I think things have gotten a lot more interesting. People can be, just up front and just be normal human beings, and it's enjoyable to listen to.
That is the way to be. Cause it's like in this digital world, it's like, you are very transparent. And if you are not who you say you are, it's like the audience will turn against you almost in a sense. Cause it's better to get found out. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. You'll essentially get found out if you're being fake and such. And I just love what I do, man. It's absolutely a blessing. I'm booked out for the next 6 weeks. So I'm pretty happy about that. I got podcasts launched already. So it has been a whirlwind, and it's like, Chris has been a big pivotal moment in my career. Like when I started meeting new people, like meeting you and Dave, and he's always introducing me to new people like Jeremy from Toxin, and introducing people to the outdoors. It's been an absolute fantastic ride. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it's been a blessing.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
So on that note, my friend, I'm going to let you go, because we've pounded out in over an hour here, and we've had on some really powerful topics here. And I'm really excited about what you have up your sleeve in the next 20 days and your turkey knives and stuff. And so you get some sleep.
Oh no, we're good. It's like I said, it's all good. Yeah, it'll be, you'll know it when you see it. And I think, like I said, I'll just say that it's going to be the way they're finished I think it'll be interesting. So I'll leave it at that. So,
excellent. Shoot me over a couple links regarding the laser, so this way I can look them up and stuff like that to figure out what they have in their catalog that makes sense for me.
I will do that. Cool, man.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Shay, for coming on. I appreciate your time. The one and only Shay Butler. And tell people how we can reach you, how we can find you.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Shay Butler Knives. We are on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. I'll admittedly tell you that I don't check it very often. So if you really need to get a hold of me, the best way is Instagram. And then we have a website, www.shaybutlerknives.com. And you can find all the good stuff there. There's not a lot of stuff in stock, and everything's a build. So if you're looking for a knife and you want to build something, you can find that there. But there will be some new things that we're going to be doing with some in stock, ready to go knives for you guys that are looking to get something. And so we'll be changing and announcing some new and exciting stuff here probably in the next month or two. So, yeah.
There we have it, folks. Thank you, Shay. You have yourself a wonderful evening.
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.